Someone requested a tour of my OS2 computer, so here's a quick tour of my OS2 computer, unscripted. As you can see, the motherboard is an AIM B742. It has on it a CPU, which is a Pentium 4 Extreme Edition 3.4 GHz, socket 478 with an 800 MHz frontside bus. It has 4 GB of DDR memory. It has a video card, which is a Radeon 3850 with 512 megabytes of memory. It has a PCI card with 6-port SATA on it. Then we have a 1 GB compact flash connected via IDE to motherboard. Then we have 5 500 GB hard drives, 4 of which are connected using the Vantech PCI card. The other hard drive is connected directly to the motherboard via SATA. We have a DVD reader connected to the motherboard via IDE. And then we have a DVD burner connected to the motherboard via SATA. I have a Sound Blaster 32, not an AW32, but a Sound Blaster 32 with a memory upgrade. Don't remember how much memory I put it into it, but it was the maximum amount. A hard MPU card, which is a enthusiast DOS card that allow you to do intelligent MIDI when you connect it to a Roland MT32. I don't have a Roland MT32, but I do have a MIDITech Piano Box Pro connected to that card, and it sort of works for some Roland games, like Budokan. It works pretty well there. I mean, the sound's really good. Most of the Roland games, it does not sound right. It really needs, for Roland, it really needs the Roland MT32. However, for general MIDI, it works flawlessly. It's just that intelligent part which the Roland card needs, that it doesn't work well for all Roland games. I haven't tested every one of them with the MIDITech Piano Box Pro, but I would say that most of them, if I had to guess, most of them don't sound right, except for the one, except for one of my favorite games, which is Budokan. So moving on, I have an Advanced Logic ALS 300 sound card in there as well that's connected via PCI. The OS2 driver that I have for that sound card does not work, and I don't know why. It might be because I have too many devices connected to the motherboard, or maybe it was just never designed to work with eComStation. I have no idea why it doesn't work. I have the right driver. There's an ISA version and a PCI version. I have the PCI version. The other thing is it has a modem combo on it. So on the card, there's a modem, a 56K modem on it. So maybe it doesn't work because of that, because maybe that makes the card different enough that the driver doesn't understand it. The ALS 300 is pretty hard to find on the internet. I actually had to order it from overseas, and I had to do a proxy bid on it, which was a complete pain. Moving on, I have a MOSFET MCS 7830 USB to Ethernet adapter, so that gives me my network, and we'll explain why I'm not using the onboard adapter on the next slide. So here are the devices on the motherboard that I am not using and are disabled via the BIOS. The serial ports. I disabled both serial ports because I needed the interrupts from those serial ports to support other devices. Trying to do interrupt sharing on some of the other devices that I have installed in the slots did not work, so I needed the interrupts from the serial ports, to which once you disable them, they become available for everything. The parallel port. Another interrupt that I needed was interrupt 7 for the cards that are installed on the motherboard. I also needed the address space, the 278 address space, for the stuff on the motherboard as well. So now, as far as the onboard Ethernet, I had used it with eComStation, but it ended up breaking at some point. I don't know at what point the Ethernet jack stopped working, but it would sometimes boot up with the computer, and sometimes it would not. And when it would not, I wouldn't have any Ethernet, and when it would, I would maybe have Ethernet. It was just really flaky. It might be a broken connection, or maybe it's been too long and it had so many things happen to it that just stopped working. So it worked. When it did work, it worked pretty well. But the other thing is that by disabling it, I also get an interrupt back for that as well. And since the interrupt for the USB controller is always going to be there, I sort of pare down the number of interrupts I need that I can allocate to other things like additional PCI cards. So if I want to throw in, say, what was I thinking about putting in there? And it actually, what I was thinking about putting in there doesn't even require an interrupt, which was a Voodoo 2, which I have. I haven't thrown it in there. I'm probably not going to throw it in there anytime soon because it's a very niche device. Mostly from what I've seen, the people that put Voodoo 2s in it just play Quake 3 or something like that on it. So I'm probably not going to put that in there. But we'll see. At least I have plenty of interrupts for the cards that I have installed, just by disabling the ones that are devices that I have on board. So, operating systems installed. First, I'd start with the BIOS extender. I know it's not an operating system, but it is an integral part of being able to boot into eComStation or OS2, and I do use that. I have Windows 8.1 installed, and it's on the hard drive that's plugged directly into the motherboard. I'm not going to show it in this presentation because you already know what Windows 8.1 looks like, or you could look at another video. This is mainly about OS2. Windows 98 SE is on the compact flash card, and I'm probably not going to show that as well because it's not really OS2 related. Maybe I might change my mind, but there's no reason to show it in this presentation since I'm winging it. Probably not going to show it. eComStation 2X. And now I say 2X because I'm not really sure at this point what version I purchased, but it was such a long time ago that I was just getting around to it in the past couple years to install it. So I know it's 2 point something. They had, if you look at the Wikipedia page, they had a couple of listings for 2.2 and 2.1 and calling them beta something or other. But regardless, I'm pretty sure it's 2.0 and up that's compatible. So moving along, I have Parted Magic. It is a ISO that is on the Windows 8.1 drive, and I boot into that mainly to back up the computer. So I use the Clonezilla. I use Clonezilla to back up the drive after I do about 5 check disks to account for the replay log that's in OS2. And that seems to work out well. When I do 5 check disks before backup, it seems to work out well, and I don't have any problems restoring. At least I don't know, because I haven't done a restore in a little while. But I did have problems with the replay journal in OS2, and it seems like the check disks might flush it out before you back it up. I end up doing 5 in a row, and I'm guessing that's going to work. So that's pretty much for the slideshow. So let's move on to going into OS2 and show you some things around there. All right, my config.sys file. This is not 100% customized, but I did reorder some portions of it, and I re-added some lines that I might be interested in later that are remmed out. I didn't do all of the remming, but some of them I did. So start from the top. Not really anything there that I customized so much. One thing that I did remove was the RAM file system. I couldn't get it to work, or I didn't need it to work, and it probably could work if I look into it long enough. but I didn't need it. Moving on, OS2 mainly for the network stuff. OS2, you have to use the UI to manage the network protocol setup and stuff like that. It's not just a config.sys file. You can do things in the config.sys file, but the interfaces have to be managed using the network protocol management tool. So let's see what I got in here. I do have DOS TCP support, so got 2 lines in there for that. I can't remember if I added them manually. I probably did because I don't think it starts off with DOS TCP support. See what else we have. I have a line that is remmed out. That was the onboard network card that I had used initially, and it just kind of stopped working. And I wanted to have the config.sys line in there to know which driver to use. If for some reason I get it fixed and I want to go back to it, but I pretty much gave up on it. In its place, I do have that MCS 7830 USB to Ethernet adapter, and so that's in there. I do have my own custom ACPI line in the web config. I had a bunch of them that I was playing with initially, and I just left them in there for all the different combinations. But the line that I have that's actually working is this one. I forgot what /VBE is. I think ACPI just enables ACPI, but I do know that SMP enables multiprocessor support. This is a Pentium 4, and it's not recommended that you use that flag, but I think through the scheduler and this flag, I end up getting a performance boost on certain applications, so I left it on, and I just toned down the number of threads that are allowed for the operating system. I mean, for applications on the operating system. So let's keep going. Let's see. Guess I'm not using a mouse, and I forgot what the significance of that was. I'm not using that version of a mouse, but it looks like I'm using a different version of a mouse. That's the USB mouse. Let me take a little drink. 1 second. So continuing on, we've got, scroll down a bit. Next little thing that's in there that's kind of mine is the install of the RT MIDI device driver. So that's intelligent MIDI card that I mentioned in the hardware list. This driver talks to that card, and you can see that it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 MIDI ports available. Now, you can't just have this one line in the config.sys and have the operating system use the card. But at some point, if I do want to play general MIDI from an app that's native to OS2, I could potentially use this driver plus modify the mixer settings and install the MPU 401 driver into the desktop environment. But so there's multiple so just a little bit about the RT MIDI. There's multiple versions of the driver, and the latest one was hard to find because things are starting to get older, and a lot of the websites are kind of disappearing, and they kind of need to be consolidated to retain the information. But I think the guy that built the RT MIDI driver is no longer around. He is, I think, passed away, and a lot of the people that worked on some of these things are just really old, also. So they may not want to be bothered to support any of this stuff. But if the driver works, it works. You don't need support at that point. So moving on, I have a custom line for the Sound Blaster. AW32, well, this is the Sound Blaster 32. It's not really an AW because it doesn't have the onboard memory. You have to put it via expansion memory slots, which makes it AW32 compatible, but that's my line for my Sound Blaster. Now, there's another little interesting tidbit, which is the, let's make sure I got the right line. Hold on, I don't want to give you misinformation. Where did I go? I lost my place now. I am fairly certain it is these two lines right here. So I have two Gravis gamepads that are plugged in that use the game CONFIG.SYS driver, and they're set to GRIP, which is Gravis's advanced connection method. It's like a digital connection method, and there's a switch on both the back of the gamepads that are GRIP, and it only works when you have a GRIP compliant driver. So you can't use GRIP in an ordinary DOS session, excluding OS2 or whatever. As far as the driver itself goes, this is a custom driver that's not included with eComStation or OS2, and there are multiple versions of it, and finding the right one or the newest one was fairly difficult because I had to trace it back to a forum post, and I didn't have access to that forum. It was like a Yahoo forum or something like that. So I had to contact the person that managed the Yahoo forum to find the driver, and they ended up uploading it to a site so that I could get a hold of the latest one. So the latest one is awesome, as far as I can tell. It's way better than, say, the 1.0 version of this driver, which doesn't support GRIP or any of the Gravis standards. It also, this driver, let's just take a look at it, because this might come up. Maybe I can head off a few questions about this driver, because it is a custom driver, and I think I do have a doc file for it. So let's see if I can open this. Oh, it's going to have to open it in Office, even though it's not really an Office document. So we'll let Office load, open Office load, and open that file and see what it says, so you can see what version of the driver that I'm talking about is. So hopefully this is the right document. And if it is, it will mention GRIP and all the other stuff. So let's take a look. Ah, yes. So it supports some joysticks that are not like standard DOS compatible joysticks, stuff that you would need the Windows 9X software for. So it has considerable amount of support for other types of joysticks that are, let's say, just not DOS compliant ones without software intervention. So here's the list of joysticks that it supports. As you can see, this is the one that I'm using right now, the two Gravis Gamepad Pros, set up via GRIP. I don't see that in there, but it does support it. I wonder if it mentions it. Let me see if I can find it mentioning GRIP. I wonder if this is the right document. I had to go fishing for a bunch of different... I went through probably all of the different versions of this driver to get a good DOS joystick driver. Or one that supported DOS. It doesn't mention it. I wonder if this is the right document. I don't see it. I might have read it somewhere online, but anyways. If you have any questions about it, maybe I can dig it up. I do have the driver saved on a network drive that I might be able to share them with you if I can find it. Or I could just take a copy of it from my folder here and zip it up and give you the one that I have. So, moving on, I have the universal audio driver. I don't remember what version of it is, but it's installed and it currently allows me to use the onboard sound card that it's connected to. So I do have OS2 set up to use multiple sound devices. It's a little bit tricky. Get it to work the way you want it. Kind of have to have a strategy around it. But I might show that one. I think I'm going to plan on going into the mixer settings to show you what I have there. Moving on, I have some SIO 2K drivers remmed out. I have SIO, not the 2K version, the 1.6 version. What SIO is a virtual COM port that allows you to create COM ports that are compatible with Telnet and other virtual modem type functionalities. So if you wanted to do a null modem cable over TCP, you could use the SIO to do it, or if you want to do a virtual modem connection, you could do that. So it's similar to being able to have a virtual COM port, and actually I think it's more advanced than that. I think it actually lets you share COM ports, for programs that need to communicate to each other via COM port. I think it does that as well, but I'm just using the virtual modem part of SIO. And it is compatible with talking to DOSBox. So if you have DOSBox on one end and you want to run the DOS program natively on the other end, you can communicate to somebody who has DOSBox over the internet to your computer locally. And I'm going to probably show that in this demo, maybe not, depending on how much time I have left. I am doing this unscripted, and I do have somewhere to go, but let's see if I can keep going. So I have 4 virtual COM port drivers set up using COM 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it allows me to, like I said, use say a dial-up program to connect to Telnet, or a DOS program to connect to Telnet. I couldn't get the SIO 2K version to work in DOS, so I downgraded to the 1.6 version. And the part that I couldn't get to work was this part of it right here, this CONFIG.SYS, which is what you need for the DOS Windows. So you need that for DOS Windows. It wouldn't work, and so I ended up using the 1.6 version, and it's CONFIG.SYS driver, which does work in DOS. So it limits you to the number of virtual COM ports you can have, but I mean, if 4 virtual COM ports is not enough, then you probably you're probably going to have some other problems too, but I don't know. 4 virtual COM ports was enough for me for now. I'm not running a bulletin board, but that's pretty cool. So going along with that, there are actually that's pretty much it. These other lines are remmed out. This was for real COM ports. I was trying to use the motherboard COM ports, and when I ended up needing the interrupts for them anyways, I remmed these lines out anyways. So moving on, let's see. We've got a couple. We have VirtualBox and Virtual PC installed, so those are the drivers that are required for that. And then this is just another LAN driver. OS2 network driver, and I'm not sure what it does, but it's needed. Got some library paths here. That's pretty interesting. Hopefully I'll come back to that, because the order in which the library paths appear is important. take a look at it one more time. Thought I saw something weird in there. No, no. Pretty much normal. Let's see, is there anything else in here worth mentioning? No, I don't see anything else. So I'm going to move on, and some people might be interested in sound related stuff. So I'm going to move on to that, since that might be, some people might want to have multiple sound cards in OS2. So I'm going to show what I know about the mixer support and the mixer files. So in OS2, there is a folder, and it is typically MMOS2. I haven't seen it called anything else. And inside that folder, there is a file. Let me just verify it real quick. Yes, it's this file. Not the other one, but MMPM2. So this is, I don't fully understand it, so my questions, my answers might be limited to any questions. But it basically, it's the textual version of the UI that manages the multimedia features. Let me see if I can at least bring that up, maybe. Let's see. Sure, I picked the right one. I don't think it's this. No, it is this. Okay, so this UI is related to the file, almost directly related to the file. And to get what you want, so like if you want to have multiple sound cards, you have to configure this file manually in order for that to work. So there's sections of the files, and it says what extensions the driver supports. For instance, the IBM DigiVid Player 01 only supports these extensions. So if you double click on a file, it'll try to open up with those with that player. But that's not really sound card related. Let's get to the sound card part. All right. So multiple sound cards. This, I believe this is the section. I'm going to scroll through to make sure I've got the right one. Once you get multiple sound cards installed and they all have their own mixers, what you can do is order the sound cards in here into the preference. So like my preference is to run the universal audio driver first, and then if that's not available, use the IBM Sound Blaster Wave driver second. So for wave audio, do it in this order. For I guess the volume control, which should rarely be used, like there's an app that just is a dial, one dial for audio volume control. That probably controls this. I didn't really change the CD audio. I haven't really had any programs yet that use CD audio in this way. So that pretty much covers the multiple sound card parts. It's just ordering them in the order that you want the sound cards to be used. And also this affects the order in the list. Now, the list order is important, and I'll tell you why. Certain programs, like Virtual PC for OS2, which does support sound out, it doesn't give you a way of changing which sound card to use. So it'll pick the first one. So if you want the first one to be the universal audio driver, then you need to put it first. And actually, it's this line up here probably. It needs to be first. So any program that just goes out, it's going to pick the first one. So that's how that works. Another thing that's important is going back to this extensions. I'm not going to really go over the video part so much because I use different video players and I don't really play it from the file window directly. That was a feature a long time ago It's like, oh, you can just open up a file directly from Explorer. It's IBM or OS2's version of the File Explorer. But what is necessary is to add the missing extensions into both sound cards. So the Universal Audio has two extensions that it supports, Wave and Voice, and you have to replicate whatever extensions. So there's a number of extensions, and then the extensions list themselves. You have to replicate on all those sounds. So if both sound cards are capable of playing both those types of files, you have to replicate the extensions. So I have the extensions here, and I also have, let me go back. I have the extensions here. So they're both the same. They don't start off the same. What happens is whichever one you install first using the multimedia installation, it gets the extensions and the other one does not, or something like that. And you end up having to edit this file manually to supply the extensions to both. And because the UI won't let you change this properly. So I ended up changing the text file directly. Let's see, is there anything else in here worth mentioning? Default volumes, that might be worth mentioning. It's difficult to get the default volume set via UI. I haven't found a good tool that I can run on startup that will set the default volumes correctly. And this file, if you know what the parameter strings are to set, you can kind of make it so that when the computer boots it up, it has somewhat of a sense of what the default volume should be. The Universal Audio driver, I think that one actually works. So when you use the Universal Audio driver mixer, I think it retains these and actually makes them work. But anyways, that's the thing. So moving on, this is supposed to be a quick tour, not a long and in-depth tour, but it's getting there. I do have someplace to go, but so let's move on. All right, now let's play with the virtual serial port. So there's an executable command that you have to run for SIO to run the virtual modem. So it's called vmodem.exe. I have a shadow shortcut on my desktop to run it. So that starts that, and then we can open up a terminal program and connect to a bulletin board. Do that. Obviously, you have to configure the terminal program, but this one's already configured. So we'll go ahead and try it out. So connected to the bulletin board. So I'm going to hang up. And now we're going to do a DOSBox to OS2 connection. So let's try that. First, I gotta find out what my IP address is. So let me do that. Alright, so it's 192.168.1.163. Okay. So let's open up a terminal program again. HyperAccess is a little bit finicky, but it's hard to do it all on one machine. Usually you're talking to a second machine, but I'll do it here. So let's see. So cancel. So that should give me a terminal window. I'll just open up DOSBox. I'm going to set up a serial port connection. Just refresh the page there so you can get rid of that ugly looking graphic there. There we go. DOS box running. It's going. IP address, we gotta put the IP address in. Have it up once. Alright, so that should establish the connection, I think. Type that fast enough. Ring. Come on. There. Normally I don't have such problems, but I usually connect two different computers together, not on the same computer. So now you should see type here on DOSBox and it'll show up on Hyperterminal. Also type here. If I had half duplex on, it would show on both screens, but I don't have that right now. So that's just a demonstration that it is working. So DOSBox can connect to SIO, which is cool. I didn't expect that, but it works, so I'm happy. So now I'm done with that. So we'll move on to the next thing. So let me close all these windows out. So what should we look at next? Let's look at the command prompts next. Probably some people that need to know, they're just looking at this like OS2 and wondering about the DOS command prompt, what my take is on it. I don't use the vcompat library. I haven't had a need to use it yet. I just manage the settings on the command prompts. It's not really that bad. One thing I wanted to mention though is that the hardware timer. So I can show you what settings I have. We'll just go through them really slowly, one at a time. So this is what I run most of the time. And you can pause the video if you need to look at any of them. And I use gamepad, so digital response is on. Direct access to the game port is off, but digital response is on. And SIO provides a bunch of extra settings. Let me go back. I went too fast. Don't want to go too fast. There's a lot of settings though. Yeah, so that's what I use for most of my settings. But what I want to talk about is the hardware timer, because that's probably what confusion. There's probably some confusion around that. One thing I noticed with the hardware timer, they gave a little description in the description box, but I don't think it's accurate. what from what I could tell, it's better to have the hardware timer off because OS2 multitasks better with it off than with it on. With it on, it chews up a lot of extra resources, like having a DOS window open. And I think I can count the number of games that require the hardware timer on one hand, and most of them are fine with it off. And it might be because I have a really fast processor also, but if I didn't, I'd probably still try to turn it off because it uses a lot of resources. If you want to run like two DOS box windows open and they both have a hardware timer on, it'll just chew up a lot of resources when you start running programs like a module file player or something like that, along with a DOS game. I like to do that. It's a lot of fun. But most of the time I just have the hardware timer turned off. But I have all of these. So like when I right click and I say open with command prompt, I can pick from all of my different settings for that. So that's a little quick overview of the command prompt. Another thing I could show, let's see, is the ALS 300 sound card. Although I can't use it in OS2 like as accessible for OS2, but it's accessible for the DOS prompt. So let me do that real quick. So I'm booting from my Windows 98 disk, and I'm just gonna go in here and type in ALS 300. It's a BAT file that I have that just hits the card and plays a WAV file. And I have to play the WAV file for some reason, because if I don't, it won't work in the game. It's weird. It has to immediately use, I guess, the DMA channel, otherwise it doesn't work. So that's that. So I'm gonna exit out of that. Nope, forgot I can't exit this one. Exit the other way. I'm gonna go back in and check my mixer settings for the Sound Blaster. Otherwise, my microphone won't work. It's not set right, and it's still set the way I had it before, so it's good. Next, let's see. I'm gonna hold on a second. All right, so let's look at the thing that the person who asked for a little overview of the system wanted to see, which was Streets of Rage, the Streets of Rage remake running under Odin. So let me go ahead and open that up. Oh, that's right, I have a shortcut on my desktop. It just has one little error message that you can hit ignore on. And there you go. There are some performance considerations. Go ahead and close it. Oh, so let's talk about what was required to get it to run. Typically, Odin will tell you what files are missing, and whether it's one of the Microsoft Visual C runtimes or something like that, you can just add it into the Odin directory. And I think the directory is located here. So that's the directory. I just created a shadow on my desktop for that. One thing that, and this might be a performance issue for the VESA driver, the Panorama driver, is reducing the color set and reducing the resolution. But I don't reduce the resolution, I just reduce the color set. So let me show you that real quick. So I think by default it sets you up with 16 million colors, but I found that if you lower it to 65,000 colors, which I think is 64K, you get more performance out of it, but you could also lower the resolution. So the VESA driver, it's VESA standard 2 instead of VESA standard 3, from what I can tell, because none of the VESA 3 commands work. So that's the limiting, that seems to be the limiting point for the Panorama VESA driver, is that you're limited to what VESA 2 can do at a certain resolution. So I'm trying to think, there was some other things that I wanted to say about that. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to say was that Streets of Rage running without hyperthreading is slower than running with hyperthreading. So even though hyperthreading isn't officially supported on a Pentium 4 for eComStation, it works a lot faster than with it turned off. So and probably Streets of Rage is a single-threaded application, I would imagine, but it seems to work better with hyperthreading on than with off. So I have it on. In regards to that, let's take a look at my eComStation scheduler options. Since this is a little quick tour that's taken a lot of time. I actually had to go somewhere and come back because I had problems with the capture card. So it's a lot later in the day. So let me open up my kernel settings here. So sys level didn't change much with that. I didn't change anything with that. This is not changeable. Scheduler. So here is what I have the scheduler settings set at. And I do keep the maximum process count low. I mean, 64 is kind of low. I thought I had it lower than that at one time, but I think I've been gradually inching it up. And I'm trying to avoid a race condition, but these settings seems to work fine for me for most part. You can't multitask a lot, or else it'll just shut. Once it runs out of threads, it'll just shut the other application down. So I think if you keep the thread count low, you have more stability. But you might have problems with applications that's closing because they just request another thread that's not available and just shuts itself down. So memory options, I would want to turn the swap file off. I can't. OS2 doesn't. I don't see a way to turn off the swap file, so I have it set. Have it on, and not much I can do about it. I do have early memory initialization on. I think that's off by default. But what I found with that was, if, for instance, you have a lot of devices, a lot of PCI devices and ISA devices, and you have a lot of drivers to load, you may not get it through them all without the early memory initialization. That's relatively new for me, because what I tried to do was I tried to put an ALS 4000 sound card in the machine, and I ran into a problem where it wouldn't load up all the drivers because there wasn't enough free memory. So somehow the ALS 4000 changed the memory layout of the whole machine, and it wasn't able to load up the drivers. So I just left it on once I realized it was beneficial in that case, but I've had it off for most time that I've had this install of OS2. So drivers, this page doesn't really show very much. You can get more from the CONFIG.SYS than you can from this page. Fat cache. Yeah, I turned off the fat cache. So anytime I'm accessing a fat drive, I don't have lazy write on, and I don't have the cache on, because, man, it was months ago, but I had some kind of problem where I couldn't access the FAT drive properly. And I found out turning these settings off seemed to do the trick. So, system path. LIBPATH, this is actually fairly important. When you have, and this should probably be a part of the tour, when you have Arca Noae package manager and you're installing packages from that, Arca Noae package manager is like an online repository of packages for like libraries that you need to run apps, and apps themselves like FFmpeg is an app, Odin is an app. Basically, you can install all that stuff, but the thing is, eComStation comes with a lot of DLLs that overlap. So the problem you run into is which DLL does it hit first? Does it hit the one that came with the machine first? Or does it hit the newer one that comes with Arca Noae package manager? So I changed the order of the LIBPATH. So this is LIBPATH, right? There's many types of paths, but this is LIBPATH. I changed the order to move the Arca, where the Arca packages put the libraries in, at a higher order so that it hits them first before it tries to do anything with the eComStation libraries. So I just bumped them up in priority. So essentially that should look for the stuff that I downloaded from Arca Noae package manager first before the other ones, if I made that clear. And you'll get warnings inside of Arca Noae package manager. I think if if the order is incorrect, and you might even get a warning if the order is correct. So just some food for thought on that, because it came up for me and I had to figure it out. WPS, don't think there's anything in here that's different. I'm looking at it now. You can compare it with your own system if you have one. I might have changed these flags on the errors tab. Definitely wouldn't change the icon. The icon's perfect. So that's that. Okay, so now let's look at the Arca Noae package manager, because that should be a part of the tour, I guess. It's a quick tour. So I'll load it up. So here's what it looks like. Just refreshing the repository, getting all the statuses of the packages installed and all that other stuff. I'm just going to parse it and show it to you. But wait until this gets done. So it's processing the list. I've got a lot of stuff installed from here. Yep, so it shows me like with a green star stuff that could be updated. Not that you necessarily want to, especially when it comes to GCC, which is the compiler library. You don't necessarily want to update that. But here's everything I have installed real quick. Just going to page through it real fast. This is just a quick tour. If you got any questions, leave some questions in the comments. So, I think it's pretty easy to read. The video should be pretty sharp, so it can be hard to read. can just see it at a high level. One thing that I tried to do is have the Pentium 4 version of the package installed. Since I have a Pentium 4, if there's any architectural advantage, which is probably very minimal, I'll have the Pentium 4 version of it. And when you install these things, there'll be options. You can do advanced options and figure out if there's a Pentium 4 package for it. There's also a lot of interdependency issues that you have to sort out yourself when you start doing stuff like that. And well, the GCC issue that I'm having right now is because I actually have a project that I've been working on with it, so I can't update my GCC just yet. It's not ready. So that's the package manager. And this tab shows you stuff that you could install that hasn't been installed. So, whoops, I went too fast. Tried to use the scroll wheel the wrong way. So, a bunch of stuff that I don't have installed. So that's package manager. Let's see, what's something that would be useful? Oh, man, there's a lot of nook and crannies. Oh, I know what to do next. Hold on one sec. All right, so one thing we should probably look at is Windows 3.1. Let's take a look at. I'm not going to run Windows 3.1 just yet. I may not run it for this tutorial because it's like, okay, I'm clicking around in Windows 3.1. But one thing that is probably relevant, again, I mentioned the hardware timer earlier. You want to try to run Windows 3.1 without the hardware timer if you can. But one thing that's probably relevant is trying to remember what it's called. As soon as I see it, I'll remember. So let me just go ahead and open up the system INI file and take a look at it, so I don't have to guess what the name of it is. Alright, so this is the sysINI file for Windows 3.1 for my install of it. One thing that you're probably going to need to mess with is the timer resolution. So the timer max resolution, 386 and 286. There is documentation on the web on how to set this. Well, let me say that there's documentation that mentions it, and that's necessarily how to set it. My setting is set to 11. I don't remember what the other ones were, but this is typically needed for when you play videos inside of Windows 3.1. So QuickTime, specifically, I think I had a problem with, and I ended up having to implement these timer settings in order to fix it so that QuickTime worked. So I was able to get to QuickTime to work by just having this setting in here. And then of course you have to install QuickTime, which is another headache. But yeah, fun stuff. And I remember this. Actually, no, I don't remember this from back in the day. Back in the day, I had OS2 or version 3, but I think I did play around with the system INI. I think that's what I remember from back in the day, is having to try to get it working right. Yeah. I do have Win32S. I think it's Win32S. Yeah, I do have that installed. But I don't know if I'm going to do that in a quick tour. We're already getting pretty long in this tour. I have ScumVM installed. That's not really saying it. Let's see. What else can we show? I don't think we can show any more else. This is supposed to be a quick system tour. Yeah, I think a longer tour is going to be a lot to show. So this is supposed to be a quick one. I think I'm going to end it here. There's more stuff I could show, like VirtualBox and Virtual PC and Clip Grab, which doesn't work anymore. Firefox, some DOS games running, various mod players. Could show the a DOSBox game connected to OS2 DOS session, but yeah. So I might just I've got it here. Let me see if I can go into Procomm Plus just to show you that the DOS thing does work. Hopefully. So I'm going to connect to a BBS. Oh, got to run vModem. I made a mistake. Do that. Yeah, there we go. Alright, try and dial it again. Dial it memory. ATDT BBS. Start. That's it right there. So there we go. Neat. Exit out. That's Procomm Plus real quick. Let's see anything else I could show in like a rapid fire fashion. No, not really. I think I'm gonna wrap it up. So if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments or shoot me a private message and I'll see if I can type something back to you and answer your request. A longer tour, I don't know. I'd have to plan that out. There's a lot of stuff that I have installed, but it's not something that's not available like anywhere else. It's all of the real details are the little settings, like the Windows 3.1 system INI file, like setting that properly, or config.sys file. Those little niches are the only thing that's kind of hard to do, but I kind of showed some of them here. But hope you found this useful, and have a good day. See ya.